Welcome to the Silent Answer podcast, the podcast where we let silence answer questions. But is that even possible to find answers through silence? Because we all are conditioned to believe that both in silence and emptiness is to be found, right? What if that in both silence and emptiness, untold power is waiting to be revealed? What if in both silence and emptiness, fullness is to be found? More precisely, fullness of information. But not the information that we are common to use. Information that is designed to make us break free from the inside out. Information that makes us remember who we truly are. My intention with this podcast is to help you remember those answers via the gateway of silence. Now, pause for a second. Do you have any life's challenges or questions that you are looking for answers to? Then I invite you to leave your question in the comment box below or go to the silentanswerpodcast.com website and leave your question there. You can even send me a video question so I can integrate your question in one of my next episodes. Thanks for cooperating to help inspire others via your question. In the next week's episode, you will get the answer why we are living in a world of control, why the world of control is getting tighter and tighter, and what we can actually do about it. I want to give answers coming from silence the purest way possible, and that is why I will close my eyes to not be distracted. I will also cut the spaces of silence in between my answers to make the podcast more convenient to listen to. In this week's episode, I'm going to share with you how I found out that in silence, answers are to be found, that are designed to help us break free from the inside out and help us remember who we truly are, how tremendously powerful we actually are, and how I found out that the answers that we are programmed to believe coming from outside are not always true and may not always be in our best interest. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. And the answer started 42 years ago when I was 8 years old. I was lying in the brown sofa at home and I didn't go to school because I had extreme headache. And I had immense pain when I was trying to tilt my chin down. So my mother called the doctor. He came over and he examined me, and then he went a few meters away to discuss what was going on with my mother. And my mother went to the kitchen and came back. And the thing I will never forget is the tears and the fear in my mother's eyes that she was trying to hide. I felt it was serious, and I was afraid too, especially seeing the fear in the eyes of my mother. I had to go to the hospital in quarantine. I was diagnosed with meningitis, which is a life-threatening disease. We all are conditioned to believe that we have to be very much afraid of the end of our lives. So I was too. But after a while in quarantine, I didn't have any energy left anymore, apart from looking through the window and seeing an old chimney stack, having metal rings surrounding the chimney stack, and only was able to count those metal rings. All the energy almost has left my body. But the moment when I was lying all alone in quarantine in the hospital with my teddy bear next to me and having almost no energy in my body anymore, that fear that I had was replaced with a tremendous, warm, loving feeling that I had never experienced before. All of a sudden, my fear was replaced with the warmest, most comfortable feeling that I ever was aware of. Having been conditioned that fear of the end of our lives or fear of dying, and actually experiencing the exact opposite when I was close to the end of my life, was my first big wake-up call that what we have been conditioned to believe might not be true. I experienced that the end of our lives, as we are conditioned to believe is the end, is not the end at all. And that it is not something we need to be afraid of. That when you have to go to the next level, that you are completely fine. And at the same time, that if you would go, that you would want that the loved ones around you who stay behind would also know that I would be completely fine. It was an experience that you cannot read about, but have to experience in order to know. I was very grateful that I survived the disease, because at 8 years old I hadn't really lived, loved, or mattered to the fullest yet. Of course, I mattered to my family and friends, although I could be a real pain in the ass to my sister sometimes. So I was really grateful that I still got the chance to explore what it actually means to feel that I truly had lived, loved, and mattered to the fullest. That profound experience and that extreme contradiction has made a deep impact on me. I started being interested in completely different things than the children of my age. And for example, I was completely amazed and interested in seeing a drop of rain rolling down a leaf of a tree early in the morning, while the children of my age were playing soccer, were having fights, and so on. So from that period, I started to feel different, separated, and alone, even though I had many friends. But a strange experience arose. I was feeling alone, but at the same time, I felt such a feeling of fulfillment without needing anything outside of myself. At around 12 years old, I grew so fast all of a sudden that my joints became actually thicker than my limbs. And one day I was trying to do the handstand on the playground at school, and my pants was being pulled down so you can actually see my legs. And someone yelled at me, "Your legs look like hockey sticks." And from that moment on, children started laughing at me because I was so skinny. And I don't know if you ever have been laughed at, but that is not a feeling that you are looking for. So I desperately started to look for answers or solutions to not be laughed at anymore. First, I tried to eat as much as possible, but that didn't help. Then, out of constant fear and desperation of being laughed at again, I tried to wear different layers of clothing, but with the constant fear that I would be unmasked again. And of course, when I was going to another school by bus, one day somebody saw another pants sticking under my jeans. And in the packed bus, filled with children, he started pointing at my pants sticking under my jeans, and he started laughing, and everyone looked at me, and my constant anxious thoughts of ever being laughed at again became reality again. I felt tiny, vulnerable, and unmasked. Then I obsessively looked for answers in fitness. I wanted to become bigger. But at the same time, because of having survived a life-threatening disease, I was obsessed with health. I wanted to be as healthy as possible to not get sick anymore. I was obsessed with learning to understand why do we get sick and how can we become or stay the healthiest possible naturally. So I became obsessed with learning everything about fitness and nutrition. By following the fitness and nutritional guidelines to the letter, I had almost no result in the first 2 years. It frustrated me big time. I thought I was the problem again, that it was my genes or whatever, that it didn't work for me. It made me feel more unworthy, even more than when I was being laughed at. But then after 2 years and really hard work, I finally started building muscle and started becoming bigger. But to my surprise, I got severe acne and also high blood pressure. I learned to cover up the acne with very strong cream, not knowing that there was a deeper cause of these symptoms. Around 17 years old, I was muscular and people didn't laugh at me anymore. I was working during holidays in a restaurant, but I didn't like it at all because my boss was very controlling and intimidating. So I shared that with a friend of mine, and he asked me, why don't you try working as a model instead? But because I had very low self-esteem for being laughed at for many years, I did not have the self-esteem to go to a model agency and say, hey, am I good enough to become a model? I kept complaining about the controlling and intimidating boss at work. And sometime later, that same friend I was complaining against came up with a newspaper article. And in that newspaper article, they were looking for men to compete in the first Mr. Belgium contest. And that there would be a pre-selection held by a model agency. So the friend of mine said, why don't you go to the pre-selection with all those other different guys? If they would notice you, the better. If they don't, no worries, because you are one among many. Having been so disgusted by the intimidating and controlling boss at work, I eventually considered to participate. And to make a long story short, I was selected among the first 20 contestants, and I was completely flabbergasted when I was being selected the first Mr. Belgium. And the first Mr. Belgium had to go to the first Mr. World contest in 1996 in Turkey. And I was completely shocked that I won the first Mr. World contest in 1996. At that moment, my body was labeled as a body to not be laughed at anymore. But inside, I was still feeling very insecure. So in television interviews, in newspaper articles, I was doing my very best to give the right answers, what people would want me to say, in order to not be laughed at anymore, in order to not be confronted anymore with my very low self-esteem behind my successful mask. I did many both television and newspaper article interviews internationally. And what I was very much surprised about is that what you say in an interview is not what will be broadcasted. So that made me question things, because we get all of our information from what is being broadcasted. If that is not the truth, and if that is the only source we base our truth upon, then how can we ever discover what is true or not? At the same time, we are conditioned to believe that when we become successful, that we will feel worthy. And I had become successful. I lived in Miami, I lived in New York, I flew to a job with a private jet, I went to the most beautiful locations all over the world, I slept in the most beautiful hotels, I had the girlfriend that fit the profile, I had all the status symbols that we are conditioned to believe to be successful with. But even though I had reached all those external goals, on the inside I was still feeling restless, fearful and insecure. And the fact that I had built my entire life upon the idea that reaching a goal outside of myself of success, that it will eventually give me peace of mind and complete fulfillment, and the fact that it didn't, apart from the short shots of satisfaction each time, made all the security I had built my entire life upon sink in quicksand. I did not know what to do anymore. I was successful, but it did not bring me the promised feeling of liberation at all. So I did not know what to do anymore. I got burnt out and depressed. And what I noticed, that a lot of celebrities that I was having contact with were having the exact same issue. That inside they were feeling restless, empty, and not liberated at all. But on the outside, they were still continuing to play the mask of pretending. The mask of pretending that we all are conditioned to believe, to look up to. And to mask that inner turmoil, they used drugs or alcohol to not have to feel it. Luckily, I had experienced before how it feels to feel independently fulfilled when being close to the end of my life. To feel completely independently fulfilled without needing anything externally. I didn't want to continue to numb myself with futile distractions anymore. Having experienced that, having achieved big success on the outside, and the fact that it did not liberate me on the inside, was my next big wake-up call that what we have been conditioned to believe is not true. This was actually the beginning of the greatest journey I have ever made. By having discovered that our programmed answers coming from outside, from school, from the media, from television, from the government, from experts, from any outer source, were not always true, and sometimes not even in our best interest, that is when I decided to make a 180-degree U-turn to go and look for true answers. I found a way we can actually flush out our unresolved feelings, our pain, our traumas, without having to relive them. This way, we don't need to live with a mask or a protection wall anymore. We can all let it go without the fear of ever feeling that unresolved pain ever again. And in that state, you will experience a silence, a peace, a feeling of independent fulfillment. And in that deep silence, I found answers that I was looking for my entire life outside of myself, but couldn't find it, but eventually find them within myself through that gateway of silence. We all are programmed to believe, to continue to hunt for outer success with the promise that it will give us liberation. And maybe we might reach that success, but only to realize that liberation is not to be found there. But the irony or the contradiction in life is that once we make a 180-degree U-turn and find true liberation, true abundance, unconditional love, reconnection with the power of our soul within, then that will be reflected automatically and effortlessly outside of ourselves, so we will experience it both within and without experiencing the constant fear like I had that the mask will fall away and that I would feel the unresolved feelings of unworthiness ever again. When I found those profound answers in deep silence, I was so excited that I wanted to share them with my family and friends. And even despite my enthusiasm, they resisted. They did not want to hear it. They wanted everything to stay the same and were protecting it at all costs. I could not understand why my loved ones didn't want to discover how it feels to break free and to feel independently fulfilled. So I eventually gave up and stopped sharing. But for some strange reason, when I went outside, for example to the supermarket, people started talking to me, and for some strange reason, they all started asking me deep life's questions. And when I started answering them from that deep silence I discovered, they all were very eager to absorb the information like a sponge. This way, I learned that we can only pay forward this liberating information to people who are actually ready to break free. Otherwise, they will protect their reality at all costs, even when their programmed reality is based upon a lie and not in their best interest. And after having found complete and independent fulfillment within, I thought our body is not who we are, because where is our body of 10 years ago? So I didn't work out anymore because I thought it was not important anymore. Then my next big wake-up call arose. I was still following the health guidelines to the letter, but I got an autoimmune skin disease and joint disease, a so-called diagnosis that is irreversible. But since I had experienced already so many contradictions, contrary to what we are programmed to believe, I started to question the diagnosis from the very root up. I was determined to find the actual root cause and to find a natural solution to reverse the diagnosis completely. And again, after questioning everything, but really everything, I found a natural way to reverse not one or two, but all my disease symptoms from the very root up, and purely naturally. I found the answers through the gateway of silence that is directly linked with the natural intelligence, again, that is way smarter than the smartest minds or the smartest science. Then there was the global health crisis. But what I was truly amazed about is that they didn't broadcast how we could actually strengthen our innate immune system. For example, getting vitamin D from the sun, which isn't actually a vitamin but a hormone, is actually one of the most powerful ways to strengthen our innate, very, very powerful immune system. But instead of promoting getting outside and getting this very powerful vitamin D to strengthen our immune system, they broadcasted to get and stay inside instead of broadcasting any natural, powerful solution to strengthen our immune system. They only broadcasted unnatural solutions by doing the exact opposite of the health and fitness guidelines. I am now around my 50s, back, but in far better shape than when I won the first Mr. World in '96. For example, my heart rate variability, which is a measure for health, fitness, and even youthfulness, now measures around 200 milliseconds, which is even double the value than an average 20-year-old. All by making a 180-degree U-turn away from what we are all programmed to believe, in the direction of finding answers via the gateway of silence that directly connect us with the source or the natural intelligence. So by experiencing that what we are programmed to believe is the exact opposite of what is in our best interest, is how I started questioning everything, and this is how I found out. Now my question to you is, how did you find out? What did you find out, or what did you experience that is directly the opposite of what we all are programmed to believe? Please let me know in the comment box below so others get inspired to find out as well. The more people find out that what we are programmed to believe might not be true, and the more we align with our independent power and liberation, the more our frequency will rise, and the more our overall frequency will rise, the more it will be reflected back at us in the world around us. In the next week's episode, I'm going to share with you why we are living in a world of control, why control is getting tighter and tighter, and what we can do about it. If you liked this episode, please leave a review below, like it and share it with someone who might benefit from it. If you have a life's challenge or a life's question that you are looking for an answer to, I invite you to go to the silentanswerpodcast.com website and send me your video question so I can integrate it in one of my next episodes. Thank you for your cooperation to help as many people as possible remember. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.